Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru, and I'm here to remind you that while the Writers Guild have reached the end of their strike, SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Guild, is still currently on strike, and we, of course, cannot make movies without actors, so we must still support them. So I'm going to include a link to both the Entertainment Fund and to their official website if you want to help them out more directly. And as I usually say in these intros, the corporates, support the unions, and let's get back to this review. Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And today we're going to talk about Suitable Flesh, directed by Joe Lynch.
Joe Lynch!
Based on the H.P. Lovecraft story, The Thing on the Doorstep. But wait, there's even more pedigree behind this movie, because Suitable Flesh was originally supposed to be directed by Stuart Gordon.
The late, great Stuart Gordon.
It was originally going to be his final project, but he passed away before he could get it off the ground. So Joe Lynch, Barbara Crampton, and the rest of the crew of this movie not only got the movie off the ground, they crafted it as a loving tribute to his filmography, including allusions to his movies such as Reanimator and From Beyond and Dagon, while also making the movie look like a movie he would have made.
Yeah, hats off to Joe Lynch, because he and crew perfectly recreated Stuart Gordon's look and style.
This movie will transport you back into the 80s because even though the movie is set in the modern day, everything about its style feels like the same movies as Reanimator and From Beyond, but a completely different story.
Yeah.
This is a passion project born from the ashes of a dead man's passion project.
It perfectly fits in the H.P. Lovecraft Stuart Gordon universe because they lovingly recreated sets and blocking and shots from Reanimator and From Beyond.
Yep, this is clearly set in the same universe, or at the very least is homaging those universes.
Yep.
And I fucking love this movie. It is a gorehound's delight. It also does the thing that Stuart Gordon was well known for, and that's taking H.P. Lovecraft stories and turning them into erotic stories.
Yeah.
With a ton of sex and gooey stuff. Blood and other entrails.
Yes.
And this is probably the sexiest any of those movies have ever been, with probably the most sex scenes per fucking capita.
Oh, yeah. I was actually a little bit worried because it takes a while for it to happen. I was really worried we weren't going to get a titty shot.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm like, no. We need one good titty shot.
Oh, you do.
It's a Stuart Gordon movie. There's always one good one.
So this movie stars Heather Graham and Barbara Crampton. Heather Graham is the main character. She plays a psychiatrist who one day at Miskatonic University, where she works, a student shows up convinced that someone has been taking over his body and that if they don't do something fast, he's going to lose control over his own body. And she witnesses this control being taken over of his body at one point and concludes that he is suffering from multiple personality disorder, the most dramatic case she's ever seen, in fact, and that also she could use him as the subject for a major case study, which naturally would be very good for her career. But even more than that, she also wants to fuck him. But unfortunately for her, this ends up getting her sucked into a really fucked up scenario with a lot of sex and violence in which most people do not survive.
Yeah.
I do not know at what point we count things as spoilers with this movie, because I had no idea where this movie was going when I first started watching it, and it just got weirder and weirder as it went.
Yes.
I love the main character because she is not a perfect person.
Oh, no.
She is a very flawed person with her own motivations and her own drives, and those things kind of do her in over the course of this story. There's almost like a EC Comics, like Just Desserts aspect to this.
Yeah, just like in the Stuart Gordon flicks.
Just like in the Stuart Gordon flicks. Much like Reanimator himself. There's a drive she's got, but that drive is not necessarily a good thing.
Yes.
Same thing with the characters in From Beyond and to a certain extent Dagon.
Yeah. Only thing that's missing from this movie to make it a near perfect Stuart Gordon flick is Jeffrey Combs's.
Yeah, unfortunately, they wanted to cast him in this movie. I was reading about this, and he just had scheduling conflicts. There was a part specifically he was going to play that he didn't end up playing.
Yeah.
And they got someone else who was in another Stuart Gordon movie.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's
so
cameos.
It's still a family picture.
Yeah,
you know?
There's cameos from various people from Stuart Gordon's career. So this movie really does feel like everyone who worked with him paying tribute to him. Like, even though this movie's filled with sex, violence, debauchery, I'm sitting there tearing up because I'm like, oh man, Stuart Gordon would have fucking loved this.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, this very much feels like the movie he would have wanted to make.
Absolutely.
All the performances in this movie are fantastic, by the way, especially Heather Graham and Judah Lewis, who is the actor playing her ever-distressed patient. Also, special shout out to the guy playing her patient's father. That guy's brief appearance in this movie was a major highlight.
He's in a ton of shit, and he's always great. It's the guy who played the original Willard and fucking the senator in X-Men, the professor in Lords of Salem.
You are correct. He does a great job in this movie.
I keep forgetting the actor's name.
Yeah,
and I feel really bad about that.
I feel like his name is Bruce. I don't know why.
And yes, indeed, the actor playing her patient's father is in fact named Bruce Davison.
And everyone in this movie is playing more than one part.
Yes.
Which makes the performances even more amazing.
Yeah, almost everyone in the movie plays both the villain and another character because the villain switches bodies.
Yes, there's body swapping happening in this. It's fucking great. So you have that moment in like every sitcom where like characters switch bodies and they have to play the other characters.
Yeah.
So you have things like that happening in this movie, but in this horrific, gory, hypersexual environment.
Yeah.
Now, without getting into spoilers, I will say that the antagonist of this story, the Lovecraftian entity, if you will, is awesome.
Yeah.
This thing is all about the sex, and that's mainly what they're about.
Yeah.
They're about sex. The movies that actually also reminded me of are Brian Yuzna movies, which are closely related.
Are very closely related.
They're closely related.
Gordon, yeah.
Because I was thinking of movies like The Dentist, right?
Yeah.
Movies that are like, there's this very specific type of like early 90s, late 80s kind of thriller horror movie hybrid thing where you're watching characters that are like professionals at a specific job slowly descend into some sort of like madness. The Dentist being a great example of that. And this movie is that with body swapping, but a psychiatrist.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, this is not real psychiatry.
No.
This is 80s movie psychiatry.
Oh, that's the other thing you gotta understand about this movie. This movie exists with 80s cheesy movie logic.
They use a lot of outdated terminology,
Yes.
like multiple personality disorder.
Some things do like loving tributes to the 80s. A great example of that being like Stranger Things, probably the most famous tribute of the 80s.
Yeah, probably one of the best.
It is a great example of taking all of the best things and kind of leaving out all the worst. This movie is a lot more like Death Proof.
Yeah.
Where it is a loving recreation of a movie of that era, flaws and all.
Yeah.
So if that sounds like a good time for you, if you love that era of movies, the Brian Yuzna movies, the Stuart Gordon movies.
Reanimator, Brian Reanimator, From Beyond. This movie's gonna be perfect.
This movie's gonna be for you. It is gonna be a you movie. It immediately shot up to like number 3 of my favorite movies of the year when I saw it, because this movie felt like Joe Lynch reached out to the screen, pointed at me and said, "This is for you, man." That's how I felt watching this movie.
It even has sleazy saxophone music.
Yes.
You know, which is just like, oh, mwah, mwah,
or like
chef's kiss.
The really cheesy backdrops out the window to simulate outside when they're clearly on sets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
So, Suitable Flesh is currently available to rent on various streaming platforms. I highly recommend you do, because this movie's fucking awesome. I do believe it had like a limited theatrical release, but wasn't lucky enough to go see that. So, I will include an Amazon affiliate link in the description below. If you want to rent it through that link, I will get a kickback from it, and I'll appreciate it. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, let us move on to the spoilers. The main crux of this plot, because I didn't want to get too deep into spoilers, is there is this creature that swaps bodies. But in order to swap the body, it puts you in the other body.
Yep.
And if it switches into your body 3 times, you lose control of your body and it takes control of that body.
Yep.
Now, what happens to you? You get left in the last body.
Yep.
What happened to the person who had your last body? They're in the body behind them. So there's this chain of people losing their bodies. But this movie gets even messier than that, because over the course of this movie, this thing will switch bodies just to get out of situations.
Yeah.
And then you end up with like so-and-so in someone else's body, and it like gets really weird. At one point, she ends up in her best friend's body and vice versa, and it gets wild. Basically what happens is it takes over her body and then starts to take over her life, and she has to stop it before it does this 3 times and she loses control over everything. And the worst part is that when it takes over her life, it does certain things better than she does. Like it like rekindles her relationship with her fucking husband through fucking violent kinky sex, which she is not the person to do, because
that's not her.
That's not her. And to be fair to her husband, like she seems to be more interested in younger guys now, based on how attracted she was to
the original kid.
To the original kid, or at least the original kid with that creature in it, doing his like chauvinistic performance. There's a part of her that clearly liked being fucking treated like trash. That's the kind of like depths of like fucking depravity this gets into.
The critter is deeply misogynistic.
Yeah, well, the critter is written like it's an old man from like the 1940s.
Yeah.
Complete with all the misogyny.
It's like, hey, doll, why don't you come over here and spread them cheeks?
He's grabbing people by the pussy.
Yeah.
You know, like he completely feels like he's like from a different era, which is your big tip off every time someone's been taken over by him. Because sometimes you're not supposed to know that he has taken over someone until it happens.
Yeah.
And yet, despite all that misogyny, the creature doesn't seem to mind being in the body of either sex. Though it's clear even when it's in a quote-unquote woman's body, it still on some level objectifies said body. All in all, there's some wild sexual and gender politics in this movie, even when filtered through its 80s splatter flick lens.
So yeah, it takes over her body, it takes over other people's body, it has a lot of sex in all these bodies.
Yep.
Ultimately culminating in this really fucking gruesome finale, where it's swapping between 4 different people, including one that's like a corpse, because in order to stop it from turning her, she like ran it over with a car multiple times. And probably one of my favorite shots in the entire movie is her backing up into it over and over again.
It's so good.
Because you're seeing it from the interior of the car, and she's got her like backup cam in the center, so you can see it hitting it while you're seeing her reaction to it each time.
Yeah.
It's perfectly
so
fucking
beautiful.
done. So like at the end of the movie, like she's been committed for murders that he committed, and he is one of the corpses that she supposedly murdered. The same morgue from Reanimator, by the way.
Yep.
Lovingly recreated. And she's trying to convince her friend Barbara Crampton, who's the one who's like her doctor now, which is complete malpractice. You can't do that for your friend, but remember, 80s movie logic.
Yeah.
80s movie logic. She is trying to convince her that this body swap thing is happening, and then they end up swapping in between each other, and there's this huge shootout with the fucking like security guard. This movie goes bonkers. Not quite malignant levels of bonkers, but almost. And so you have this mess of characters swapping bodies and pointing guns at each other, and then swapping bodies to take over the gun and shit like that.
Yeah.
By the end of the movie, people die and some people live, and you're left wondering, did they kill it?
Is it dead? Did they get it? You know?
And then you find out at the very end that it basically, I believe it took over Barbara Crampton's character.
Yeah, takes over Barbara Crampton. Yeah.
Yep, the ending shot is it smoking in her fucking office, because she didn't smoke, she vaped, but the monster smoked. Now, mind you, I don't think anyone necessarily deserves the fate they got in this movie, but there is that kind of EC Comics feeling of like, well, you were gonna use this kid, and then you cheated on your husband with this kid. What did you expect to happen?
Yeah, something bad was gonna come out of this, you know?
This is a great kind of throwback, because like I said, usually throwbacks are like, we're gonna throw in all the good stuff, we're gonna leave out all the bad stuff, and we're going to make the best possible version of this. We're going to planet terror it, right?
Yeah.
I love that this movie is an example of a death proof of something that just, this is literally how they made movies back then. This is how they looked. This is how they sounded. This is the logic they used.
And some of the same actors, too.
And some of the same actors. Because it's some of the same actors, they know how the acting was in those movies, too.
Yep.
Where it's not quite supernaturalistic. There's almost like a stagey quality to it. And they lovingly recreate that, too. Even Heather Graham, who I know is a phenomenal female actress is hamming it up in this.
Yeah, no, totally. Totally. She is matching everybody, you know.
Also, I want to see more movies with her and Barbara Crampton because they work really well together.
They did work really well together.
You know, I was watching this movie and there's a point in which there's almost like an erotic moment between them because the creature takes over one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going like, wait, hold on. I understand that this movie's almost over, but I want this movie.
Yeah.
Give me the Heather Graham, Barbara Crampton, old lady lesbian movie.
Yeah.
Being badasses doing something, because there's something here. My fellow Gorehounds, if you couldn't tell, we adore this movie.
It's a good movie. It's an easy watch.
Yeah.
It's a ton of fun. You should see it. So good.
And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, where can they find you, Count Jackula?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Counting Jack. You can find me on Blue Sky at Count Jackula, and you can find me on TikTok at Real Count Jackula, and you can find me on Instagram at Satanic Jackula. But where you can really find me is here on YouTube, where I stream throughout the week, generally starting around 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you should hit subscribe on my page, hit the notification bell so that you are alerted whenever I am streaming. But what about you?
Y'all know me, I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitter, on Twitch, on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, Mastodon. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you would like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And if you made it this far into the vlog, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag
Stuart Gordon Lives. Use the hashtag Stuart Gordon Lives. That way I know. That way Jack knows. That way the whole world knows that even though Mr. Gordon may no longer be with us, the spirit of his work continues in suitable flesh.